11:01. I will just make some introductions, I guess.
Yeah, go for it.
Tyson Casca. I'm the one of the co-founders of OnTrajectory and the current CEO. With us also is Andrew, our Chief of Marketing and Design. You want to say hi, Andrew?
Yeah, no, thanks, man. I'm excited to be, just officially on board. So it's exciting to see what's happening and where we're headed. So glad to be a part of the team and glad to be here with everybody for sure.
If you've been on these webinars in the past, Andrew has always been here, but he was here in unofficial capacity. Now
That's right.
Officially part of the OT team. So as of what, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago?
Yeah, early June. So
yeah, so it's fantastic to have him and his chops aboard.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man.
All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and get started then.
Yeah, I think that's great. And again, just a quick reminder before you jump in, if you, as Tyson is going through, because he's the expert on how all of this stuff works and figured it out. But one thing is, if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A. So if something pops up as he's explaining something, just throw it in there and I'll chime in after a bit and kind of throw those questions his way. I think it's always important to remember that we're talking about how you can figure this out. We're not planners, so this is not financial advice, but we do want to help you figure out the pathway to your financial freedom. And we have a tool that you can use. And so we want to show you how to best use that tool today.
Yep. So yes, that's great. Thanks. Andrew, the focus of today is going to be, hey, I'm new to OnTrajectory, and what are the kind of the, not necessarily minimum, but what are the key features that I really should pay attention to just to get started and make sure that I have a good plan? Because as you know, when you joined, you only answered 4 questions. You answered what year were you born, your current income. Am I sharing? I am sharing. Good.
Yep.
Your current income. How much do you save on a monthly basis, and how much have you managed to save overall in your life? Those are usually very top of mind questions. People know the answers to those questions, so it's very easy to get started. We make a lot of assumptions then, because we're not asking you 30 or 40 questions about your financial situation, and because I see, oh no one, and because we are asking so few questions up front, because we want you to get started. We want you to get the ball rolling. We want a very low barrier of entry. We don't want to intimidate anyone when they're coming in. But as a result, that means there's some work to do on the other side, which is now I need to fill out some more details about myself so that I can get an accurate picture. So the screen you're looking at right now, this is one of our typical onboarding screens. We have 4 different ways you can onboard. This is kind of the default one. This is what we call planning for retirement. And you can see I filled out the 4 questions. I was not born in 1987, but anyway, income, save, etc. Now I'm gonna mess up here and say I'm not married when in fact I am, and see how I can correct for that later. But these are just 4 questions. We update the chart here and then click continue. All right, so here we are. So this is where everyone, when they're a first-time user or you create a new scenario, this is where you come in. And we do have 3 videos that will help you understand the basics, but there's really a bit more you can do to fill out your profile a little bit in a healthy fashion. Just to let the community know, we are currently working on everything that I'm about to tell you. We're working on kind of a checklist, active checklists that folks can fill out and say, okay, I did this, okay. And you fill it up and you have a sense of progress and a sense of completion, and you can feel good that you didn't miss anything because you've got this list in front of you. The list that I'm going to be working from today is the actual list that we're working on to put into the tool to help you guys make sure you've got everything sorted.
And maybe what we could say is, at least for you guys in the webinar, we'll send that as an attachment to this, because we're still working on putting it into the tool, but that would be a good just heads up. Hey, an extra bonus for joining us today.
For being diligent and tracking your financial future. Okay, so I'm going to work through this list because, as I said, we put you in here, we give you access to 3 little videos, but by and large, you're a little bit on your own at this point. We have the income tab, and in this case, 2 income streams were defined because I said that I currently make $75,000. We put a line in for Social Security, but notice there's no spousal salary, and let's say I forgot that. Expenses, 2 line items, basic expenses. How did we calculate this? We didn't ask you your expenses, but we did ask you your pre-tax salary, and we asked you how much do you save each month. Well, guess what? If we know your pre-tax salary, we can make an assumption about your taxes, and then we can back into and figure out what your expenses are because we know how much you say that you're saving. So it's a sneaky way to get to expenses, but helpful because you don't have to look at a credit card statement or anything like that. And we also reduce expenses after your retirement age by 15%, I think is what we do. That may or may not be correct. Again, we're gonna walk through the list, but these are just the assumptions that we make. And then finally, we put 1 account in here. Notice that this is not like a savings account. This is more like a brokerage account or a mutual fund, something that's earning you a little bit. And the balance that you said you had. And of course, the idea is that you're going to, if you've got a 401k and a IRA and different accounts, you're going to break out and add those and spread the starting balance correctly among those accounts. So those are the assumptions that we make coming in, and what should you do to confirm the assumptions and to fill out your account. I'm going to start on the list, but Andrew, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I was just going to say on one thing, just especially as people are brand new, because when I remember when I first jumped on, I was really curious how what I just put in relates to what I'm seeing on that chart up there and the chance of success. Because I had some questions about what does that exactly mean and what's my chance of success relate to, and like just unpack how everything I just wrote in there actually shows up on that chart, because I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely. So we just walked through the data points, how the 4 questions translates to the data points, but how does that translate to the visual? Another key differentiator of OnTrajectory is that it's a very, very visual tool. You've got this big chart in front of you at all times. We never navigate away when you're entering data. You enter data in the user interface, and it immediately refreshes on the screen. But what is it? What am I looking at? Okay, so in this case, this is your total assets. It's not net worth, it's total assets. The reason I say it's not net worth is because you can, in OnTrajectory, you can define debt. So if you've got a home, you can define your mortgage debt. If you've got credit cards that you're carrying a balance on, you can define that debt, or any other kind of rotating credit that carries a debt. You can define it to the system, but we're not taking that out here. So this is the assets that you have. So the assets that you have, starting where we start, something that's sometimes a little bit confusing is that we put the age markers at the end of the year. And there's a very specific reason for it. And that's because not everybody in 2022, this person may not be 35 on January 1st. They might not be 35 on June 1st, but they will absolutely be 35 on December 31st. So to prevent confusion of, oh, well, the chart says I'm 34, but I'm actually, this different age, we're putting the age marker at the end of the year. And if you hover over, you see 12/31/22, age 35, and how much do I have? So that is slightly different, but it helps from when you're visualizing and trying to have how it feels in your gut, it's helpful. So I know I'm going to be 35 by the end of this year. And then see the assets are accruing, and you can see that reflected on the tooltip. And then you see this M is for my retirement age. Again, this is the marker is here at the end of the year, and so this is the year that I retire, between this peak and that marker. So that's why you see that the funds decreasing. And then in this particular case, we're not quite making it to age 90, which is our default end age. We're only making it really to about 87. But this is still saying 100%, or I'm sorry, 97% chance of success. What the heck does that mean? Okay, so we're going to later talk a little bit more, but there's something in the financial planning space called Monte Carlo analysis. And basically what it does is it takes some historical data and it projects it into the future in a random fashion. And it does it again and again and again and again and again and again. And what this is telling us is that I have a 90, even though this chart is drawn and has a negative $75,000, I actually have a 97% chance that I will not run out of funds at age 90. It means a 3% chance that I will. Now, how do we unpack that? See, the growth assumption here is 4.5% up until retirement, R, and then it's 2.5% from R until 90. So markets don't actually go 4.5%, 4.5%, 4.5%, and then 2.5%, 2.5%, 2.5%. These are conservative estimates that help me draw my line. They might be a little bit too conservative, and maybe that's why I'm running out of money. Or maybe I want it to be conservative, and I actually want to reduce my spending a little bit to make this everything in the green instead, or in the black instead of in the red. So when we run the Monte Carlo analysis, we do 500 runs by default. Out of the 500 runs, 97% of them ended up above zero, and 3% of them ended below. So that's really good. When I talk to folks, I say, shoot for 95% chance of success. At minimum 90. And people are like, 90? That's too high. I should spend more. Larry, I'm going to get to that question in one sec. I should spend more. Well, think about it this way. If you had a room of 10 people and they all had a 90% chance of success, statistically speaking, one of those people is going to run out of money. That's a 1 in 10 chance. That's what 90% means. It means 9 out of 10. So there's 1 out of 10 chance that person's going to run out of money. I would rather it be a little bit higher. Anyway, this is 97% chance of success. So I know you didn't say anything, Andrew, but I'm going to address Larry's question because
yeah, I think that's great.
Because this might be confusing to some folks. Back in, I don't know, March or April. So, around the end of last year, we refreshed our user interface, and it was a really big change from our old user interface, which was very dated. It was almost 10 years old, and it looked like it. And we went through a really big redesign, and we actually had a beta, and folks could opt in and play with it, or opt out and bounce back and forth. And then I think in March, we sort of forced everyone to say, look, we can't continue to support the classic view, and we made everyone move into the new user interface. What was happening at the same time that we were going through that exercise, we were actually working already on the next iteration of OnTrajectory, which has a completely free version. So back in the quote unquote old days, we had a 14-day trial. And then if you didn't subscribe, we took away access. We now have a permanently free version. And then we also do have an unlimited version as well. As we were thinking through how to support both a basic and a paid version, we realized that we needed to continue to change the interface a little bit, and we had to group things a little bit differently, and we wanted to make it even cleaner. So if you're familiar with the current version, in the In the version pre-May of this year, which we didn't force anybody to change because we had just gone through that exercise and we didn't feel like it was a good idea to like make everyone have yet another user interface. But this one is really, really nice. And it was, as I said, it was necessary in order to support our strategy going forward. And in fact, on July, you're the first to hear this, on July 4th weekend, everyone's going to get this new one. And Andrew's going to put together a nice video for us to highlight the differences. It'll be really nice. The key difference is we've simplified this whole top right part of the screen where it currently is a little bit cluttered. Everything is now grouped here under strategies. So the various buttons and menus and stuff, we've collected them all here into strategies. And then instead of the analyze and view menu, we have just views, which is vastly easier to look at and simplified because we realized that some of the things that were in here were really different ways to strategize your plan. So all of that stuff is now in here. So just things have kind of shifted around a little bit. Nothing crazy, but those are the main differences.
Yeah, I think that's, what you just said. The idea of having a permanently free version for folks to still experiment and like get started. And then the unlimited version that has a lot of robust strategies and tools. So yeah, that's kind of what we're excited about. So,
okay, so let's get
one quick. Robert, new signups actually get this new version. So if you sign up new now, you'll get the new version as opposed to the previous version. So any new signups going forward. So if you're brand new to OnTrajectory since probably May, you're on this version.
Since May 3rd, anyone that signed up, this is what they got. If I will mention, if anyone wants to roll over sooner, they can write to our help desk and say, give me the latest OT and we can make it happen. We just got to tweak a little something on the back end. Okay. All right. So first thing, what do I need to do in order to make this model good, as good as it can be, so that I can get a comfortable feeling about my financial future? Because this looks pretty simple, right, Andrew? There's not a lot of menus. There's not a lot of fields here, but you know what? It can get really complicated really fast. So let's take this first. Income. Now, let's say you're at a point in your career where you're getting pretty significantly and pretty regularly. And that does change as you get as you go forward in your career. So just as a reminder, everything in OnTrajectory is pegged at a central inflation rate. So income, expenses, even contributions that you're making to your accounts, they're going to increase with the central inflation rate. So if you're earning raises and it's higher than 3% per year, then that's probably something pretty important to capture. If you want to be conservative and just assume 3%, then you just leave everything the way that it is. But if you wanted to do that, so basically we're going to be overriding the growth, which is pegged to inflation. So I'm going to turn on the growth override column, and I'm going to override my growth, and let's just say 7%. I'm going to assume a 7% increase in my salary for the next few years until, let's say, age 40. Okay, so now I'm going, okay, 7% from 35 to 40, and I want to add a new range here to capture my salary from 36 until retirement. Okay, there we go.
So take a second, because as we were all watching, that chart is actively up and moving. And so as you saw, if I'm watching this, when I start playing around, the first time I see it spike and I'm like, okay, this is good. And then you drop this age range and all of a sudden the thing tanks and then starts, right? Like part of that kind of explaining really kind of clearly the difference as you're building out your expected income growth. That age range thing is an important feature.
Yeah. The age range is like crazy important because, expense streams or income streams or whatever that, if your wife, if it's pregnant, she wants to take off for a year when the baby's born. I mean, you've got to for those breaks and those gaps and those things. That's super, super important. So it's a really key element. And you did see as like move, very reactive. It changes as soon as you make a little tweak. What I wanted to point out is that now see this curve, that's me out inflation and growing at a rate higher than inflation. This is a really key thing though. Notice that this starts at 70. It just because we just copy it down when you create the new range, but this is not right. This is not correct anymore. This new range doesn't start at 70 because we were outpacing inflation. So you're like, well, Tyson, how do I know what number to put in there? If you put your pointer over top, you'll see from 35 to 40, started at 75,000, and I'm outpacing inflation. In days, I would be 1,249. The number that goes in here, because I got up to, in today's dollars, everything's in today's dollars, I got up to 90. So now I'm going to assume 90 going to retirement. So that's how you plan getting some nice raises for the next few. Now, the next thing on the income side is Social Security. I mean, we put this number in, but based on data. SSA.gov is your friend. Go out there. If you have any, they'll show you exactly how many points you've already earned Social and the estimated Social Security that you yourself personally, based on your tax history, are scheduled to get. It's a really very useful, very helpful site. I was really impressed the first time I went out there because I didn't think they would actually have like all my tax returns and all the correct data. So that's really important to do. Last thing on income side is if you have a spouse or significant other, you do want to capture their income. So we're going to just click add income. We'll do spouse income and spouse Social Security. So spouse income and spouse Social Security. Now, one thing I will mention, we just stick spouse in here. We don't actually know your spouse's name or birth year. So you do want to fix that. So let's do this. Spouse income. Let's say my spouse was born in maybe a couple years younger than me, maybe 1990, and we'll have them retire at 67 as well. Okay, and so now my spouse ages are correct. Let's see here. I should have done that before. All right, so let's put spouse income of 50,000 from 32 until retirement. And then Social Security starting at R until 90. Oops. All right, I should have slowed down. I clicked through that really quick. I put 90 in here for my spouse's age, for the income to run until 90. But that means the overall trajectory, we had to push that out 3 years to allow them to have enough space on the graph because they're 3 years younger, right? So we had to push that out. That little pop-up you saw just said, hey, I'm pushing your trajectory end age out to 93 because you put 90 in here. That's all that. I should have slowed down, but sorry I didn't.
One quick one to catch.
Yeah.
Income year end, like December 31st, like it all is relative to your age. Larry asked that question just as you were going through there. Sure. You were mentioning my age, 32, by the end of the year. Income is assuming by the end of the year, correct?
Yes. So when you sign up for OnTrajectory, if you sign up in June and you say I make 50,000, if I tried to give you 50,000 for that year, that would not be correct because you're already halfway through the year. You're not going to earn 50,000 in this current year. So we do prorate everything based on the when you sign up. So you don't have to worry about putting your account balances from the beginning of the year or anything like that. You can put in your savings or your brokerage or whatever from when you sign up. And if you say I'm going to contribute $10,000 to my 401k this year, we're going to put in 5,000 if you sign up in June because that's the remaining of your contribution for the first year. And again, that allows you to put your current balance in without having to do any math and say, oh, back at the beginning of the year, it was this much. And because I'm putting 10,000 in, so everything's prorated on the first year. Cool. All right. So while this chart is looking much, much better now that I put my spouse's income in here, we're going to have to spend some money because there's no way that I'm going to leave $2.5 million in the bank at the end. But that's okay. But that's how you do it. That's all. That's my checklist for income. Modeling significant raises, verifying your Social Security, adding in spouse income. There's obviously lots of other kinds of income that someone could have. An annuity or an insurance payout or a pension if you're lucky enough to have one. If you want to model some potential bonuses, you can do all that.
If you have any questions related to income, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A. If not, no worries, but I would just say we can hang on to those and kind of circle back. But if you want to, keep moving forward. We don't have any, I asked you a couple of them. One of them was about Plaid integration, which I know you'll get to with accounts. But yes, we do have that. So, but yeah, just so if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A. That'd be great.
Awesome. All right. Expenses. What's on my checklist? Oh, well, the first one was the question about budgets. So yeah, we do have, as I say, light budgeting in OnTrajectory, and it's represented with this little group of documents icon. And if you click on that, you can group together your sort of regular ongoing recurring expenses. So let's say I've got my auto insurance is $100 per month, and my cell phone bill is $100 per month, and my dining out is probably much more than it should be, and my gas, well, we don't even want to talk about that, right? I drive an electric car, so I'm a little bit lucky in that regard. My groceries, et cetera, et cetera. So I can add everything up here. I'm just for sake of ease. So I'm targeting what, 4,300. So let's just say, whoops.
I think this is one of the things, to your point about budgeting, like you can see right here, if you are a budgeter and you're pretty meticulous, like you can enter in your consistent expenses. But I know you'll talk a little bit about some of the variable stuff and how we kind of want to overarchingly capture that. But as you can see, there's some, I mean, you say budgeting light, but I think for some people, this is actually, fairly
right.
Well laid out budget.
Yeah, it's well laid out, but I would say the difference is that tools like YNAB, you need a budget. They'll tell you, you'll actually report back and say, this month I was over and under, and it keeps you can go crazy with budgets. So
for sure.
Yeah. All right, but here's what's really neat about our budgeting is that, okay, so now you can see this green G means I've made a group out of my expenses. But let's say that this is my current budget, and I know I'm making some adjustments, or maybe there's some credit card debt in there, and it's going to be paid off in a year or something like that. And I don't want to keep this budget going forward. Back to age ranges being your best friend. If I click add an age range, now I've copied everything down, including every line item in my budget, which makes this really, really useful. So now I just go into the group here, and the line item that I know I'm going to be reducing, I can just go ahead and I forgot what it was when it was 3,000. So let's say it's 2,500, and then click apply. So now I can create. So these age ranges are 36, and this one will be 37. These age ranges, again, are so useful. Now, these are recurring expenses. So I would not put my house in here. I would not even put rent in here, because hopefully, well, not hopefully, but it may be that you're only going to rent for a certain period of time. I don't even put my car payment in here, because a car payment, when it stops, that's a nice chunk of cash coming back to you, and you don't necessarily want to include that in your forever recurring expenses. So anything that's significant, house, student loans, if you've got some credit card debt and you're paying it down quite heavily, I would break that out too. How do you do it? Click your plus sign. Let's say I've got college payment, a credit card, daycare is another huge one. I would never include in my basic expenses. Let's just go with that for now. So add these three in: college payment, credit card, daycare. So big chunky stuff that I'm not going to have forever, and maybe something I'm planning for in the future. So college payment. Let's say my kids right now are 10 or close to it. So let's just say I'm planning on, in 10 years, when I'm 45, I'll be paying until, let's say, 49, 45, 46, 47, 47, so if they graduate on time. And I'm going to be paying, let's say, $20,000 per year. And let's say credit card. Okay, let's say I'm currently paying $100 per month, and I've got debt. So over here on the right side, debt information, I've got $8,000 in credit card debt, and it's at 15%. Okay. Oh, daycare. Let's say daycare is $1,000 per month, and it's going. I only have it for two more years to 37. Okay. Now, what do I see here? So I put some debt in for my credit card. I got my college payments out in the future. I got my daycare ending pretty soon. What's this scary red thing? This scary red thing is if you've got $8,000 in credit card debt and it's at 15% and you're only paying $100 per month, you are never going to pay that debt off. That's why it's red. Let's see what OnTrajectory can do to help me out. Let's say I'm spending $200 per month. What does that do? Aha. Well, it's still taking me 5 years to pay off that credit card debt, but at least I'm paying it off, right? I'm paying it off at age 40. What if I can kick in another $50? 39. Okay, so this is really super useful from a debt perspective to understand. And if you've got multiple credit cards, you can put them all in here, and you can see exactly when they're projected to be paid off, and the difference in the overall trajectory of your life. What happens when I do pay them off? What does that do for me in the long run? And a really cool feature is, if you do have multiple credit cards and you do take the time to put the balances in and the interest rates in, you can go back to the strategies. You can use our debt reduction feature, which will let you either use a snowball or avalanche technique and pay off the debt as quickly as possible. So basically what it will do is any cash flow, any excess cash flow that you have, what is excess cash flow? That is, you've got your income, you've got your expenses, and you've got contributions that you're putting into accounts. After that occurs, in OnTrajectory, we capture that excess cash flow and we just stick it in your default account. Instead of doing that, if you run debt reduction, it's going to apply, instead of saving that excess cash flow, it's going to put it toward debt. And you can see I had debt reduction enabled. Snowball. Snowball means take the smallest amount of debt and focus on paying that first. And then after this smallest is paid off, the next biggest one, then the next biggest one. That's why it's called snowball, because it gives you a sense of meaningful accomplishment by knocking debts out quickly, and then it grows on the debt that you're attacking. Versus avalanche, which focuses on what's the highest interest rate that I have. Focus on that first, because that's going to potentially save me the most in the long run, but it tends to be a little bit slower way to do it. But instead of building up to the savings, it's avalanche. Okay, anyway. And I can see here, because I had debt reduction enabled, my I'm putting in here, this is assuming that the $602 per month I had excess is going toward debt. And it's just applying it automatically. I'm going to turn that off for now.
Well,
Andrew,
I was just going to highlight one of the great things about that, kind of two parts in my mind. One is that a lot of times people who are wrestling with, hey, I want to get on trajectory for a financial future, but I know I have a lot of debt. It can feel intimidating, and it can feel frustrating, and it can feel disappointing. And so being able to see here, in that sense, you're mapping out your income, your expenses, what total amount you can put towards that. And we're actually taking all of that calculation and giving you the number that you can target to put towards that debt, to help pay it off in the time frame that you as fast as you can. So that's something, just, I think, it's easy to roll through that, but if that's not something you've spent a lot of time trying to think about or wrestle through, it can be a really complicated question to ask. And it's a great feature, I think, that OnTrajectory has that allows you to just figure that out kind of by just putting the core information that you have access to, and then you'll see right then and there where you're going to put that excess cash until you can get past that credit card debt.
Yep. And yeah, I agree with all that. There's a quick question in the chat. Does the age... Yeah,
about age. So just age increase up by 1 on January 1st, the year you signed up, or the date you manually adjust the start age, right? So in other words, if I created a start age today, would it carry, this is how I understand the question. So Stephen, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. The day that, if I enter a start age today in June, is it going to always update in June every year, or is it going to update January 1st of 2023 and forever going forward January 1st, 2023? Or December 31st, 22? Does that make sense? Am I frozen? Huh. Uh-oh.
That was weird.
I lost you. I'm back. I see all of our attendees. Okay. I'm not sure where my did you hear my question all the way through?
Yeah, I think so. And I started to answer it, and that's when it...
Gotcha. Jennifer said she never lost me, but we lost you. So at some point...
so I was the one.
So you got dropped. Dropped.
I got dropped from my own call. All right. That was weird. And it was weird because the window just closed and it reopened automatically. The smallest increment that we have in OnTrajectory is a year. Okay, so we don't do, your calculations are not... can
you share your screen?
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Jim and Jennifer. There we go. So there's no concept of months OnTrajectory. So that's why we specifically do not ask for your birth date, because we have no way of enforcing it. Everything is chunked into a year. And so, whether you're born on January 1st or December 31st of that year, the age is going to, and again, I think I mentioned this earlier, the age ticker is on 12/31. So we know everyone is going to be whatever age they're going to be on 12/31. So so it's going to, on January 1st, it's going to tick over into that new age.
Yeah. Perfect. No, that's good. Hey, as you're going through there, one question directly related to expenses is, where do you enter your debt balance? So can you go through that one more time? Just kind of show it real quick. Perfect.
So just click on the expense item, and on the side, you'll see, well, it's normally closed. Let me do this. Okay, there we go. So you see a little debt information. And if you click on that, starting debt amount, payment amount, interest rate. This payment amount is linked directly to this amount. So if I change, we'll do $25,000 per year for college, I could change it here or there, either way. And you see it gets reflected here in the... Okay, I think that's good for expenses. Oh, I will just say, just like we did over here on income, where we overrode the central inflation rate, because I was getting raises. Same thing on expenses. If I think a college, for example, is going to outpace, and I want to put a different inflation rate, I can just turn on the growth override column and I can put that increased inflation rate there. Okay.
It's particularly, a feature that you may feel at this moment going, oh, my expenses may for the next year have a higher inflation rate than current. And so there is the ability to kind of play that out just for,
And since you if the kind of what the scenario that Andrew just brought up, hey, I think, inflation in general is going to remain at the current level for, maybe it's not going to return by the end of the year like we were all hoping. Maybe I need to plan for this for another year or two. If you go into inflation rate, central rate is 3, which I think the Fed's target is like half or something. I set a temporary inflation rate of 8%, and it's going to last for 2 years. I can see my graph, and what return back to normal inflation at the end of the 2-year period. So that's a really, really helpful feature. And you can see this little temp icon now, meaning I've got temporary. So 3% is central, but there's a temporary inflation bump in there. I should also mention that this temporary inflation rate only applies to expenses. I did mention before that incomes, expenses, and contributions are all tied to this 3%. But if you're using the temporary bump, this is a temporary expense inflation rate. So it's going to isolate expenses and only increase them without increasing your salary. If you need to increase your salary, obviously you can do that as well. You just have to do it on the income item, as we saw demonstrated before. Okay. A lot of math. Okay, what's next? Oh, I'm looking at you, Andrew, because I'm so used to looking at you for the next question.
The next question is, what's next on your list? We do have a couple of questions as we go through there, but I think one about how do we model dividend income that I think if we get through the account section, maybe that's one we can put, and then scenarios too. So some creating and modeling scenarios, I think we got a question on too. So just if you're keeping your timeline.
I got to keep the pace going here, don't I?
That's right.
I'm not intimidate folks, but I'm going to get a little bit snappier. So next on my list that you'll get because you're super duper attendees, 8% growth on your accounts. We assume our default is 4.5%. You can change that default if you want, but we're going to default to 4.5%, and obviously this 2.5 is pretty low post retirement. So whenever you add a new account, we're going to put that default 4.5% in. It's up to you to validate and change this number. And you say, well, how do I know, or what should I do? On the tooltip here, we say that generally speaking, in the industry, people say for conservative 2 to 3%, average 4 to 5%, if we're optimistic 6 to 7%. The best way to do it, in my opinion, is to go look in your returns for the past couple of years and see what you've managed to do. And then obviously in OnTrajectory, we want you to track your progress, whether you're doing that tracking through this is weird. Oh, I see. We moved it to link bank account here. So you can link your bank account to using Plaid, and we'll automatically track your progress, or your investment account, what have you, or you can always manually type in your balance so that you can see how you're doing. And if you do that, you're going to start seeing this second line appear, your progress, and your progress is going to be very squiggly, whereas your trajectory is going to be flat because we're making flat assumptions. So it's really neat to see progress and your trajectory intertwine and go over time. So validate those growth options. Validate your act. This is a little bit trickier. By default, we have a thing called automatic tax calculations. And what that means, to attempt to figure out every year your tax burden based on your income, your growth, whether that growth is occurring in an annually taxed account or a tax deferred account or some mix, right? You can have a question about dividends came up. Taxes get really intense beginning webinar. I'm going to keep it pretty general, but I just want to show you where you validate the tax rate that we're calculating. And if you want to turn off automatic because you just want to put some flat number in there, I'll show you how to do that. So to see what we're calculating, let me first point out there we do have a column by default. So now you see it. This is going to show me that auto is enabled, and that for this account, we're deferring taxes on gains until you withdraw the funds. On this account, tax deferred means it's tax deferred and will be taxed. If the full amount will be taxed when you pull it out. Again, I don't want to get too deep in the woods, but if folks know what that means, that's what it indicates. But how do I see now the tax rates that we're calculating? So there's this button, view output data, because this is not a huge amount of data really that you're seeing, but they're calculated in the background. How do I see all that? If I click view output data, this is year over year, everything that's getting calculated. And the income streams, here are my income streams. Here are my expense streams. Here are every account has got its own tab. So my 401, anything out on it, but you'll see every year, my default account every year, and my account totals every year. Withdrawals that are occurring, these are later in year, later in life, and my grand totals. So on my grand total, this is where my tax rate, I can see what we're calculating. So for each year, it's changing. Why? Because of having different earnings and outpacing inflation and gains tax rate that's being calculated. If this doesn't look right to you, or you just feel like you don't want us to do those calculations, you can turn that feature off very easily. So we see where it's now taxes are based on age ranges, just like everything else. So from 35 to retirement and from retirement to 93, they're both set to auto. I can let one stay auto and change one manually. I just click on tax options for age range 35 to 66, automatic. I can turn off automatic. And if I do so, then I can just put in whatever I want. So if I want to say, I'm just going to plan on 20% for my income and 15% on gains and just be done with it. So now you can here. So from 35 to R, I'm just going to do flat 20% tax. It's up to you how you want to do it. That's you need to make sure that we're in the ballpark, and then that's how we're not. Define and other accounts. So that's the next thing on my list. You saw me enter a 401k. Obviously, this stuff is super important because this will have a really big impact on your ability to save. So if I click 401k here, there's just a ton of functionality in OnTrajectory. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm on the most, which is contributions to your 401k. So you click on contributions. Let's say I'm contributing 10% and matching 3%. I do need to select which income these matches are being based on. So it's going to be on my base income. Obviously, if it's for my spouse's income, and click OK. Now, for 401k, the contribution is going to stop when income stops. But for other types of accounts, I might have different contributions for different periods of time. Again, this is where your age range is your. I'll just show 1K. Choose age range. So let's say I've got my I'm going from 36 to retire. Oops, I put that in the wrong spot. From 35 to retirement. from retirement until 90, I have a different structure. So contribution, oh, I'm not showing my contributions. Contributions then are affected. So if I say percent, 35 to retirement, but then from retirement, obviously I'm not getting this anymore. I can define that to the system. Again, you don't have to do that on 401ks because the contribution when your salary stops. But for other types of accounts, it's very helpful to indicate which periods of time I'm contributing and which periods of time I'm not. Okay. Next, am I good to move, Andrew?
Well, one quick one just on that. Are Medicare premiums or the IRMAA stuff automatically accounted for, or is that stuff you should?
No, they're not. They're not.
They're not.
Okay. Real quick, another huge thing to someone's retirement or for their financial life in general is the purchase of a home and the equity that builds. Allow you all of that as well. Let's say I have a home that I currently have, and this is key because obviously not everyone is going to be purchasing their home in the same year that they're starting OnTrajectory. You probably have, a couple years in. So when you fill this, if you want to put your mortgage information in so that we can properly track your equity, you want to put the equity when you purchase the home. So like the down payment. Let's just say when I purchased, I had $20,000 in equity, and my original loan amount was $400,000. I don't know if I typed that correctly. I think, yeah. It was, let's say it was 30-year loan, and it was 4%, and it was 5 years ago. Okay. So by putting that information in, what I can do is I can go back in time. I can figure out how much principal you've earned over those 5 years and of the property itself. So I click OK. Oh, so I've defined a corresponding mortgage. Enter my mortgage information. I put the mortgage information in. I never put the mortgage. Let me go back here. Here we go. Now, what this is going to do is this is actually going to create a expense item as a mortgage. So let's just say it's $2,000, and I click OK. All right, here's my home equity. I can see I should have today $113,000 of equity because I bought the property 5 years ago. It's growing at a percentage of 3%, and I've been paying mortgage. So that's how we're calculating that number. On the expenses side, I see my linked mortgage got created, and notice also its growth override 0. That's because an amortized loan, the amount never changes. If it's $2,000, it's going to be $2,000 up until I pay it off. So that's why we put that 0 there. All right, I am in my last 5 minutes, and I've got 4 things. Okay, so one is, and I did show this already, how do I link these accounts? How do I link my 401k to my, if it's linkable, how do I link it? Just click link to institution or link a bank account. We should change that. We should be linked to institution. Run your chance of success. So we talked about chance of success in the very beginning, but we haven't talked much about it since then. And look, my chance of success went away. Why is that? Well, because I added a whole bunch of stuff. And so every time I'm adding stuff and changing my plan, I need to recalculate that chance of success. And it's a very heavy calculation. So that's why we don't do it automatically at all times. We do it kind of on demand. So if I click calculate chance of success, it's going through and it's running 500 different versions of that. So I'm at 100%. I have virtually, mathematically speaking, based on the expenses that I defined, that's important, I'm not going to run out of money. So again, that's based on the expenses that I've defined. Oh, and the last two are very easy. Begin to track your progress. How do I do that? Either by linking to my institution, or I can just go in here and put my balances in. So I should have 50,000 in here. Let's say I actually have 55,000. I should have only $100 in, or 1,669. But let's say I've got 500. Maybe I've underperformed because it's been a crappy year on the market. And my home equity, let's say I check Zillow and my home, I know what I owe, and it's actually worth a little bit more because home prices have been increasing. I can put that in there. So now I can see I should have, asset-wise, 164,000. I've got 206,000. Now you notice I zoomed in here. The reason that we do this is just to show you where that progress point is in relation to where you thought you'd be. If you want to zoom back out to see your full trajectory, just click it there. And now you see this dotted gray line. The dotted gray line is if this holds, if I'm $40,000 above where I thought I would be, if it holds, line you're going to be on, but markets are choppy, go down. So what we do is we draw that line in light gray just to say this is what could happen, but better that you continue to validate. Then over time, if you say, you know what, I'm way ahead of where I thought I was going to be. Let's say I've got 250,000. Well, that's not way up. Let's say I got 300,000. I'm way ahead. I can change. Maybe I want to change some of my growth assumptions and bring those lines closer together. Okay, that is it. And we got 2 minutes, 2 whole minutes left for questions.
Well, here's one that was there's 2 that are outstanding. One is, can you show scenarios, particularly the difference between copying and comparing a scenario versus creating a whole new one? And the other one, modeling dividend income, which I said, if we don't get to, we'll record and we'll send out as a follow-up with this group. One of the things we do is any outstanding or open questions we'll answer, even if we don't get to them live. So for folks who have asked questions, or maybe you have one that's come to your mind before we go, throw it in there so that we can follow up. We'd love to do that.
Yeah. I probably won't get to the dividend, but we'll talk quickly about scenarios. We will follow up absolutely an email later on that. Okay, so do not have on trajectory. We've reorganized this menu to make it much use. The difference between copy, compare, and new. So new just creates a brand new from scratch scenario. Here's your 4 questions, and that's it, right? That's just a brand new scenario.
Like you're starting from scratch. Everything starts from scratch.
Right. Now that's completely disconnected to the other one. Now, if I go back to June workshop here, now, and this is really key, and I've set up all my accounts and I'm tracking my progress, and I want to create a new alternate scenario. I want to keep my same progress. I want to keep, everything the same. If I copy, this will be a copy. If I choose copy, now even the progress updates that I make are going to be reflected in both scenarios. So I can go in here and say, maybe this is my move to Italy scenario. Right?
I like that scenario.
So
that sounds fun.
Very different expenses and different expectations in this scenario, but I'll be able to track my progress against both. Because I copied the scenario, it means I'm copying the linkage as well. And so we're going to be able to look at both scenarios and copy them. And you can even, let me just increase my expenses here in retirement. All right. I want to increase it even more.
Yep. Make it dramatic so when we compare and we see.
All right. So now it's different. And what I can do, and this is so cool, is I can compare them. So if I say compare June workshop to, where's not in, did that rename in there? Let's see here.
You are in Italy, so you.
Oh, I'm on Italy. That's why. Yeah. Okay. I was in Italy. All right. Let's go back to Italy. That was silly. Compare scenarios. Let's add in June workshop. So now here's June workshop and here's Italy. So I can see them directly on the same screen. And this is really cool. I can flip between them. So like, I want to go back and change something on June workshop. I can click on it. Now I'm back on June workshop. I can play with my numbers down here, and it'll change, and I can still see where Italy is. Really, really useful for doing, if I want to compare different account expenses or whatever, see right on the screen. And if I want to not see this progress because it's clouding my view, I can turn that right off. And that's really cool. All right, that brings us to the end of the webinar. I want to actually thank everyone. Trajectory. I started this company back in 2014, and it's for many years it was we're going we're getting faster, and everything is just, I just truly appreciate folks that support us. Any questions you have that you want to follow up on, just email questions@ontrajectory.com. We will get answers to you. See you next month.
I would say, yeah, thank you guys so much. And, the community is what makes it happen. So truthfully, one of the things that we're passionate about is helping people actually achieve their own financial goals, whatever yours are. And so if you have friends or relatives or neighbors who are trying to figure this out, like, we'd love it if you just give them a share. Send this to them, say, man, I attended the workshop. We'll do another one of these the next scheduled one is July 9th. Saturday, July 9th, I believe. But I know a couple of questions floated in there. So we are also probably open to, if we need to do one during the week or some other times, if these are helpful. So that's awesome. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
Yes, and I if anyone's still hanging around, I will mention we're also going to be rolling out targeted workshops. So if you got, how do I do all my tax stuff on Trajectory, or how do I specific scenario based? We're going to be doing this as well. Deeper dives into the features, because we only just scratched the surface in this past hour. There's so much more to do. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Andrew.
Yeah, man.
I'll see you around.